What needles should you start out with as a beginner tattooer? When it comes to different needle configurations, let's face it, there is a ton of options out there, okay? When you're just starting out, you don't really need, that 108 round shader or that 143 curved mag, or my personal favorite, the Stinger. Just kidding, no one actually uses that needle. But seriously, there are a lot of different needle types out there. So in this video, I'm gonna show you the 6 most basic types of needles that you can get that will allow you to do almost any tattoo that you're gonna come across as a beginner tattooer. The last one that I'm gonna suggest to use is a little bit tricky to get the hang of, but once you do, it's gonna almost double the speed at which you can tattoo. And if you like this type of content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so we can keep making more videos for you. For those of you new to the channel, I'm Nathan from Tattooing 101, and my 10 years in this industry, I can honestly say that tattooing is challenging enough without overcomplicating it with 15 different needle types per tattoo that you use. This is why I recommend that new artists only start out with these 6 needle types. First up, we're gonna talk liners, and you're only gonna need 2 different sizes here, both 12 gauge, because that's gonna help you get much better saturation. So first up, we've got a 12 gauge round liner long taper. Now the cool thing about this needle is that it's thick enough to grip the skin when you're tattooing a line, which makes it easier to keep it nice and steady, but it's also thin enough that you don't need a massive angle when you're tattooing in order for all the sharps to hit the skin. You can tattoo with it at a bit of an angle. And it's not as much surface tension hitting the tip of the needle so they can penetrate the skin easier and get a nice saturated line. Now it's not quite thick enough to get those massive bold power lines that you see in back pieces and things like that, but you're not really gonna be doing those tattoos as a beginner, so it's not that big of an issue. They're also super versatile. You can use a 12 gauge 9 for almost any style of tattooing, except for really realism, but again, you're not really gonna be taking on massive realistic pieces when you're just getting started in tattooing. The next liner I'd recommend getting would be a 12 gauge 3 round liner long taper. Now you've got to be a little bit careful with these needles because there's only 3 sharps in the entire grouping. So if you have the volts too high, it's going to shred through the skin, you're going to get blowouts, you're going to overwork it, right? You really want to turn your volts down when you're using a 3. Plus, when you're using a 3, they're really good for kind of detailed areas in like larger tattoos, so you can use them for bigger pieces, but they're also really great for those walk-in tattoos, the script, the hearts, the dream catchers, the feathers, all that little stuff that kind of walks in through the door. You're going to be using a 3 round liner for that. Plus, they're great for stippling, and you can actually use these ones in realism as well. So really good, super versatile needle, just like the 9. And that's the liners. A 12 gauge 3, a 12 gauge 9, that's legit all you need when you're just getting started. Next up, we're gonna talk mags. Now these are all gonna be 10 gauge, not 12, mainly because 10 gauge needles are easier for black and gray. The sharps in the needles are thinner, so you can get smoother blends and make more passes over the skin. Now you can also do color tattoos with 10 gauge needles. It does take longer and you have to be a bit more patient, but you can still do it. Now, once you get a little bit more experienced, I'd highly advise getting 12 gauge needles in these same configurations that I'm about to tell you, so you can do color work as well. But as a beginner, you're mainly gonna be starting out with black and gray. So first up, we've got the 10 gauge 15 curved mag. Now this is a great workhorse / all-round kind of needle, right? You can cover large areas with it quite quickly. It's big enough to get those nice smooth blends, but it's also small enough so that you can hit the smaller areas in some of those smaller pieces. Plus, you can pack black in with it quite easily. The reason being is that the more sharps a needle has, the more surface tension that it has to break through in order to penetrate the skin. That's why it can be a lot easier to pack solid black with a smaller needle as opposed to some of those larger groupings like the 23, 27 and above that you might see. This is by far one of my most used needles in all the pieces that I do. Next up is the 10 gauge 7 curved mag. Now for smaller, more intricate pieces, this is my go-to needle, but I don't like going any smaller than a 7 curve, mainly because any design that is so intricate and detailed that it can't be rendered with a 7 curved mag typically will struggle to stand the test of time and still look good 10 years from now. This is why you see a lot of those micro realism guys that are tattooing with 3 round shaders or 3 round liners throughout the entire piece. They don't post a lot of healed photos, because a lot of those tattoos don't look good in a year or two's time after when they're done. So just be careful about doing that line portrait on the finger with the 3 kids' names incorporated into it, along with the family crest, when you get asked for it, because believe me, you will get asked. Almost at the end, guys, we've got 2 more needles to go, one of which is going to cut your tattooing time in half. And if you can guess what it is right in the comments, I will mail you out a crisp high five. So up next, we have a 12 gauge 7 round shader. Now this is a really cool needle because it's a jack of all trades, okay? You can line with it, you can shade with it, and whenever you're shading small areas like, tiny little details in a tattoo, you want to avoid doing it with a liner if you can, just because the way that the needles are soldered, all of the sharps of the needle are pinched close together, okay? Which means it's going to cause a lot of trauma to the skin because they're all concentrated at one point. With a round shader, on the other hand, the soldering is further back on the needle, so they're more spread apart, which means it causes less trauma in a more concentrated area, so you're less likely to overwork the skin. You can also line with them as well. You will get slightly softer edges on the line, but it's not really noticeable kind of when you stand back from it. And I like lining with round shaders as well because, again, it's less sharps in the needle. So you can use a 7 round shader, it will be the same thickness as like a 9 liner, okay? You still get the same thickness, but there's less sharps going into the skin and less trauma caused to the skin. And the final needle that you're going to need as a beginner is a 10 gauge 27 curved mag. Now, the reason why this is going to speed up your tattooing so much is because it's a massive size needle grouping and it can move through large areas of skin very quickly. In the beginning, when you just start using it, you want to save it for larger tattoos, but as you get more comfortable and confident in using it, you'll be able to use the corners of the mag to hit smaller tattoos as well, which is dramatically going to speed up your workflow. And those are the 6 needles that you need to get started in tattooing. But what about the rest of your setup, okay? When it comes to tattooing, there's more than just needles, machines, and inks. There's a lot of different things that you need to buy in order to have a complete setup. If you don't know what to get, you can burn through a ton of cash. Okay, so what we've done to help you out is put together a little shopping list that has everything that you need to get that gets fully set up and start tattooing professionally. Okay, it's got everything from the Ferrari setup. If you've got a higher budget and you want to get the best of the best stuff, we've got a list for that. If you want to say more the Honda Civic version of the tattooing setup, then yeah, we've got a list for that too, so you can save a bit of cash. I'll put a link down in the description. You can check it out so that you can get everything you need to get started with tattooing. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Had a lot of fun with this one. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe and bell icon so that we can keep making more content for you, and I will see you in the next one.